Hey, are you a business owner, entrepreneur, or professional? If so, we want you to apply to be a featured guest on our show. My name is Adam Torres, and I host the Mission Matters series of podcasts. I've recorded over 3,000 episodes, and we are just getting started. How do you know if you'd be a good guest to be on the show? Well, only one way to find out, and that's to apply, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We want guests that have a story to tell, guests with a brand, a product, or a service that can benefit my audience of listeners. If this sounds like you, go to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. I'd love to talk to you and get to know more about your story. Again, head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, now let's get into the show.
Welcome everyone and listeners to Mission Matters. We are a multimedia platform focused on the needs of entrepreneurs, business owners, executives. Our goal is to amplify essentially their stories to inspire and educate future generations and even others that are in the space right now, because we can all learn from one another. And I've had the great joy of building this alongside Adam and an amazing team. We have Rock here, who's one of our newer book publishing consultants that we brought on board recently. And so we're beginning to expand the team, and it's been a wild ride. I think we've been on this for now going on almost 5 years. And many of our folks, we have a whole book publishing division. Most of you here are a lot of our authors, in fact, and we publish many different types of books. And this topic in particular, I think hits close to home for many of us, just because of everything that's been, happening with whether it's in politically speaking, socially speaking, there's just a lot going on. And I think this is invaluable content and it's very relevant to our time. And so we wanted to put something together with a lot of our authors who we know closely resonate with, becoming a prolific and inclusive leader to, create a culture where people are more inspired, and it creates more diversity, right? And equity and equality for everyone.
All right. Thank you, Chirag. And wow, what a great turnout. We have all our friends here. I'm like, we got Tom on here. I see all these different people. Martin. I mean, this is going to be fun. And I'm excited to catch up with everyone and also just hear everyone's, insight and history and things and on leadership, because I'll tell you format wise, how this one works a little bit different than what maybe we've done in the past. So it's not me interviewing people, or we're not doing what we do on the podcast normally. This is truly more fireside chat style. Like, we want to hear your opinions. If you have an opinion on something, just like chime in. That's the thing there. And myself, I'll be taking notes and learning from all of you as I do in all these things. So let's just start top left. Jim, please, James.
Adam and Chirag, thanks again for inviting me. James Huang. I am fortunate to run a company that they call it the Amazon of real estate, which is EXP World Holdings, but I run EXP Commercial, growing the commercial platform both domestically and international, and all the ancillary services that go along with it. So I'm very proud and excited to be here and to learn from everyone. Thank you so much.
And next, Minji, please. Long time. So great to see you and hear you here.
Thank you. Good to see you. See your face and hear you, Adam. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Chirag. It's been awesome. My name is Minji Chang. I am an actor. I'm a filmmaker, an entrepreneur, and a podcast host. Host of First of All podcast, which I dive into mental health, relationships, self-development, and culture. My background has been working in the nonprofit sector, but specifically focused on entertainment, specifically further on representation of Asian Americans in entertainment. I was the executive director of a nonprofit called Collaboration. So I've been heavily involved in that space, working on a grassroots level with artists, independent artists, singers, dancers, comedians, writers, filmmakers, all the way up through the industry itself and all the big studios, and working with Warner Brothers, Netflix, etc., trying to bring this all together and see what kind of difference we can make in bringing authentic representation to the screen, because the screen impacts our daily lives and our self-perception so much. So that's my spiel, and I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome, and we're happy to have you. Elizabeth, next. And Elizabeth, you get an extra 10 seconds. You have to share with the group because I want them to celebrate your big win too on that latest project you sent me. So your intro, of course, you get an extra 10 seconds because I'm so happy and so proud of you. I'm so excited.
Oh, I adore you. Thank you so much, Adam. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here amongst all of you fantastic leaders and my fellow authors as well. Thank you so much. So I am Elizabeth Yo. I'm a United States Navy veteran. I'm an author. Thank you to Chirag and Adam. I'm an advocate, consultant, speaker, and just of late a radio co-host on LA Talk Radio. So I am all about advocating for the health, well-being, and welfare of women veterans. I am utilizing my company to be a voice, to connect and partner with other organizations who are willing to open up their doors and opportunities to the veteran community, especially the women veteran community. So I am currently highlighted with a company called Mission Hire Me as the Veteran of the Month, as Adam was so graciously announcing. And what this company does is give veterans free. Okay, I said free. They give them a video, and I'm talking about full-scale professional video to utilize as building their brand or utilize that as gaining employment. And their video really did help launch me into where I am today, to have an absolute platform to speak to the veteran community and for the veteran community. So I'm really excited and grateful to be here. And thank you so much for that extra 10 seconds, Adam.
All right, I'm so happy for you.
Hi, all. I'm Chuck Baren. I think I'm one of the few co-authors in Chicagoland. So I'm sitting here in the west suburbs of Chicago, where I grew up and been working for my whole career. I'm a 20-year veteran working for SaaS software providers, and I've been specifically small startups and trying to scale them and help them. In fact, I've been working in customer-facing roles in SaaS before we called it SaaS and before we referred to the cloud as a cloud. And I found along the way that I really have a passion for people management concepts and routines. I stumbled across it as our company was becoming more and more successful, and my team was growing and the work was coming in. It became a survival thing, trying to figure out how to properly manage people. But I found out that I really liked it and have a passion for it. And I think that self-interest of mine really helped the people love where they were working and helped to scale the business. And ultimately, the startup I joined before we had any customers was sold to SAP for $1 billion a few years ago. So it was quite successful. And then I left that and joined another startup, and I'm trying to relive that glory. But so I'll stop here. That's me, Chuck Baren. Nice to meet everybody.
Awesome, Chuck, and thank you. And I'm glad you said that you're one of the only ones in Chicago. That's the perfect team. This is a good thing about Clubhouse in general, is getting all the authors and everybody together. And Chirag and I have been searching for a platform or a way for everybody to be able to network and get to know each other. And so that it's a perfect example. We have some other Chicago authors for you. And Carolyn, if you can go next.
Yeah, Chuck, I'm from Chicago too.
Chuck, because I'm like, could you set that up so nicely? You just happen to be next. Speaking of Chicago, I had no idea. Carolyn.
I'm also one of the co-authors. I was lucky enough to be featured in the Women in Business book recently, and I was talking about authority marketing. So my niche is, I happen to just know a lot of interesting people and have been really fortunate throughout my career to kind of get involved in kind of complex communications challenges. So a lot of times I'll work with mature startups or someone rebranding a very large company and kind of taking a pivot and helping them find the right experts to carry the message forward and align themselves to kind of borrow that expertise to position their brand as a go-to expert or themselves as go-to experts in their fields. And then I do things along the lines of getting people in Forbes and the New York Times and a lot of Thrive Global, a lot of publications. But mostly recently, I've been helping some food tech clients they did a pivot from being more clinical. It was about gene editing and some therapeutics, about coming up with like seedless berries and some cool new vegetables. And so I've connected them with some nonprofits in Chicago and RDs, and we're doing like some really cool kind of what are obstacles for people to eat more healthy, like what's holding people back. And so kind of helping them actually work with the nonprofits more to kind of get the most for their money. So a lot of times I'll work with people where they think that they want a technical solution, or they think they hire me for one thing, and then we actually figure out, I think what you really need is this, and it usually saves them money or makes them a lot of money. So that's what I do, and I love interesting people, so I'm so excited to meet all you.
Awesome. Thank you. And Renee, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be part of this group. Was in the women's leadership book that was just released by this awesome group, Adam and Chirag. I think 18 women leaders. I work in digital marketing. I'm a VP of a company that does programmatic marketing. So it's very based on audiences and AI. So in my spare time, not that there's a lot of it, but I'm an advocate and philanthropist for a lot of women charities, and also focused on women in technology, and also helping children in the community. So I'm really passionate about that. And I guess that kind of goes with our topic, mentoring others.
Fantastic. Thank you. Tom, so good to see you.
Adam, so good to see you. And Chirag, thank you for inviting me. Recently celebrated the start of my 60th year, and I'm realizing I'm the token old guy. I'm probably the only baby boomer, and from looking at the pictures, I'm probably double the age of a couple people. Let's see, I spent a few decades in finance, investment management, and management consulting, hedge fund, and I spent about a dozen years recently as a lead test driver for an engineering firm. I'm a car guy. So I have a background which I could describe as diverse, but great to be here and great to see all. Oh, and I've written for 2 different books for Mission Matters.
Awesome, and thank you, Tom. All right, Martin, you're up next.
Hi, guys. Martin Rowinski. Adam, Chirag, thank you for having me here. Glad I went out and bought an Apple product so I can join you, since it's only available on Apple. I am also a co-author. Met Adam last year and was happy to join. I am also an angel investor, and as far as a daily, I am a CEO for a company called Board's Eye, and we have the pleasure of working with companies, anything from a startup to a public company. And on the other side, we work with executives, and we connect the two in helping them build executive boards or board of advisors. And some of that is focused on diversity, as we all know, is highly needed. And we've been, in our company, we've been talking about it for 3 years. And I know it's a big buzzword now, but we've been covering that area for quite a while. So happy to be here. Thank you again, guys.
All right. Thank you, Martin. And Margarita, Rita, so nice to have you here.
Thank you so much. With a name like Margarita Maria Chang, you can't help but embrace diversity. So first, a shout out to Dr. Airies. So amazing to be here with her, and congratulations to Elizabeth and Minji. Your story is truly amazing. So I am a CFP Pro. I don't want to use too much jargon. I'm a certified financial planner, and diversity and inclusion is very important to me because I am working with many people from diverse multicultural communities, and this is what I call emerging wealth. In my spare time, I volunteer, I coach girls and women to run. I would say many times it's their first race. So the military have a very special place in my heart because I have an annual tradition of running the Marine Corps Marathon. So excited to be here, everyone. And
Fantastic. And Dr. Airies, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Chirag and Adam, for hosting once again. Shout out to all of the authors for the Mission Matters Women in Business. I am Dr. Airies Davis. I call myself a business education unicorn. And that just simply means that I've been able to converge the best of the business world around diversity, equity, equality, inclusion, and belonging, coupled with academia and also the business sector. I am a talent strategist, as mentioned, an author, an entrepreneur of my own business, which is called Workforce EQI. I am also an educator. And then finally, I am most recently a cover girl. Yay! I just landed on the cover of a magazine called the Association of Women in Business and Careers. So that just happened. Boom. So I'm very excited to share, and I look forward to chatting with the rest of the panel.
Wow, that is so exciting, and definitely congratulations on that, Dr. Airies. That's awesome to hear. So maybe to get us kicked off, so I know this is a pretty broad topic, and we wanna definitely add some context and some content to this. So I'd like to start with just getting into what inclusive leadership means. Like, what is, and that's a really broad question to ask, and I'm gonna throw that over there on the table and see who picks it up first. But let's just start with maybe defining that and what that means to you.
If no one wants to take it, I always use the analogy of walking into a room, have a seat at the table, which is what most people say is around diversity and inclusion. But I'd like to take it a step further. I think it's also creating a sense of belonging. Belonging means that inclusion means that you're invited to the meeting. Belonging means that you have the agenda. And so that's a little different. While those words are sometimes interchanged, I think it's important to emphasize the distinction between diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Inclusivity is being invited to the event, and belonging is being given the agenda.
I'll follow her. That was wonderful. Wonderful. For me, and I'm going to use it from obviously a veteran perspective, because I feel like the military sector is really non-choosing to have to work with everyone literally around the world. And so for me, what diversity and inclusion really in action means is really working side by side with individuals, regardless of diverse race, gender, geographic origin, ethnic background, let's say religion, economic status, mental, physical, attitudinal capabilities, and having the sensitivity to cooperate with many different types of individuals, because that in itself is what it takes to survive and be successful in a military setting. So no matter the circumstance, no matter the situation, how hard or easy or long or short it is, your attitude and your ability to literally work side by side with individuals, whether you are a leader or a follower, is key. So for me, diversity and inclusion really is working alongside individuals, no matter your position, because all positions really are necessary to achieve the common goal.
I would have to, sorry, Renee, did you want to go?
It's okay. You go first, Martin.
I'll be quick. Dr. Airies, Elizabeth, I think you guys are right on point. And not to say the same thing you guys just said, I just like to also say that inclusive leadership, or being an inclusive leader, and this actually comes from my personal practice, I think it also includes actively seeking out and considering different views and perspectives that actually help me personally make decisions. And those come from actually having diversity around, because, you know, the more diversity you have, the different thinking you acquire. And it's always helped me see different points of view.
Martin, that's an excellent point. It was something I was going to mention about powerful teams. I've heard some studies from Google and other top places that part of a great team is just having people feeling comfortable to give feedback. And that kind of goes to what Dr. Airies was saying about, you know, not only having a seat at the table, but actually belonging. And I've seen it on my teams. I mean, you can't tell from my picture, but I've been in the workforce for 20 years, and I have, you know, people right out of college on our teams, or, you know, very diverse in terms of gender, nationality, language, and everything. And it's really interesting. You do get a lot of diverse perspectives, and it's great when everyone feels comfortable to speak up, because you don't want people on your team afraid to give a contrary position.
I'll follow that also. This is wonderful to hear all this, because I've been in an industry where in commercial real estate and also finance wasn't very diverse for a very long time. And I did promise, because I always hated that I was the token Asian commercial real estate guy, that if they needed a diverse voice, they would pick me. And you know, I had to embrace it, had to have thick skin, but also clawed my way and moved my way up Two, hopefully we run a top 10 commercial firm in time. But exactly what everyone says, I reach out trying to let everyone have an open mind to share their views. And if we don't have the diversity at the table, I go look for it to make sure I do hear some opinions. So eventually I can bring them to the table. And also creating pipeline, right? We need to learn that sometimes we don't have the person that could sit at the table or advocate or be comfortable, which we all need to really share and get people comfortable in sharing their opinions in a safe manner. But we also need to work on, as a group, to create more pipelines so that it will be more diversity in the future. And that is so beautiful, just hearing and seeing this from everyone here.
I really love what everyone's saying about working together, like the collaborating element of working across, backgrounds and roles. And I think specifically for me, working in the Asian American community, where there's such an instilled, learned culture of hierarchy and respect and kind of just an implied power structure. It was fascinating to me to work with so many volunteers across North America who are all passionate about representation, yet had such a hard time vocalizing that passion or their needs or like their ideas about how that would look in the world. And I often found that I was, as a leader, struggling to like come up with all the right solutions. I had a lot of pressure I was putting on myself, but I was doing myself a disservice by not engaging the very volunteers that were showing up to put in their volunteer hours to work on this broader mission. And so what I discovered over the years is that a lot of my gem, future leaders of the universe that I think are fantastic are often the ones that are quiet, introverted. They're incredibly thoughtful. They're very observant. And it takes a good leader, I think, to put the intention to engage. So it's basically another version of what was already said, which I think is fantastic about working around as a team and making sure that they have the agenda, but also to just make that environment welcoming for them by asking them a question, by learning a name, by asking where they're from and really caring. That sounds so simple, but people are always willing to help out. They want the best for, the company, for their career. And I think when we kind of invite them out and give them that space and really show that there is a genuine interest in what they will have to bring to the table, it can really allow them to flourish and add the diversity that we're seeking, because we cannot do anything by ourselves, right? Like we do need other people's thoughts, ideas at the table.
I was thinking too, gosh, I love the addition of belonging, because in my career, I have a lot of times where I'm organizing a lot of diverse stakeholders around to rally around one story and get everybody singing from the same songbook. So it might be board members, it might be the CEOs and the C-suite, might be patients or customers, or just a whole bunch of different people, brands, and everybody comes to the table with such a different, they want to belong. A lot of us want to belong, and we do want to find that common ground. So when we can kind of think about what the overlapping story is, or what the Venn diagram is of something that we all can bring our individual messaging to, but we can actually rally around a bigger good, like a mission matters or something. I think, Adam, you're particularly good at that. When you have any of your podcasts, you make us all feel so much like we belong, and look at this group that's showing up today. But I really think that when you do that, then the power becomes, you can take a broader message at a national level and then kind of tailor it a little bit to your own individual message, and then that keeps going and going. So I love that idea about belonging.
All right, so there's a word that Jim said that, just resonates with me, maybe just my sales background or my finance background, but the idea of building a pipeline. So the intentionality it takes, especially depending on the market you're in. So now we're more virtual, right? But let's just say that you were in XYZ city that's pretty homogenous, right? Even if you had a national presence, maybe you don't necessarily take that extra step to be intentional on building a pipeline of diverse talent. And I know, Martin, what you're doing with Board's Eye, that's your bread and butter. And I know a lot of other people that are running companies on this call right now, like, you're really intentional in these actions. So like, what kind of tools or what can people do that are maybe they want to be more inclusive in their leadership style and in the makeup of their organizations, but maybe it's a new thing for their culture, or maybe they just haven't gone down that route as far as they'd like to. What are some tools or some things that people can do?
Sure. One of the things I wanted to say that's very helpful is, Strengths Finder. I mean, you don't want to necessarily live and die by these tools, but we all have strengths, right? And knowing, all too often I hear when we're talking about pipeline, that person wasn't a good fit. What was it about that person that wasn't a good fit? I think sometimes we need to make sure that we are putting people, not just the right people, but in the right role, and understanding how that person likes to be managed. So a good example is some people really like people to give them constant feedback. Other people find that very stifling. So yes, it's definitely a recruitment piece, but as well as retention. The other thing I'll say about that is, I've had a lot of people say to me, Rita, where do I find somebody like you, like Gen X, multiracial, CFP? Our profession is very homogenous. And people will say they can't find anybody, and they are right. If we keep on looking at the same place, doing the same thing, we may not get the results we want. So I think it's just first awareness, and then, asking for help, demonstrating that, vulnerability, if you will. You know what? I don't know all the answers. Help me. I think that's helpful from a leader.
That's a great point, Margarita, because in terms of the pipeline, a lot of times we have to mentor people to be in the right spot. And, I've been on the receiving end of mentorship at some of my earlier careers, and it's made such a difference. But then some other growth opportunities, you kind of have to grab it yourself by just saying, I'm ready for that opportunity, or I've learned that skill set. So it's interesting to see, I guess, HR at certain companies, how they do work on that pipeline. But I think a good mentorship program, and also checking in with our employees and seeing what are some of the skills that they want to learn, giving them the opportunity to take classes or sponsor their classes, or having them travel to a trade show. This is pre-COVID, of course. But, there's lots of memberships they can be part of it to grow their strengths. So I think that's important, not only in like diversity based on gender or race, but also on gender on diversity and types of strengths that people have as well.
I think it's really important to understand yourself, and there are a lot of tools out here nowadays that can help you do that. So, do you guys remember the Myers-Briggs, right? The test you used to take for your personality and what. So some people take it for fun, some people don't take it seriously, but I've been in a few leadership programs over the last couple of years, and I have gone through these teamwork or DISC assessments. There are several others, but the DISC assessment is one of the tools that I've gone through twice in 2 leadership programs. And this DISC assessment is absolutely phenomenal in helping you not only understand your others or your teams, but understand yourself. A lot of people formulate teams around themselves based on what they think about themselves. So if you don't really take an assessment, and not just one assessment that maybe you took 10 years ago, because when you take an assessment, 10 years ago, how have you progressed since then? Are you in the same space? Do you think the same way? Are you hiring the same people? So, assessing yourself multiple times, every other year, every 5 years, something will help you determine, how are you growing? Are you growing? Are you adjusting as you grow your teams? Are your teams growing? Are you even trying to understand your teams? Because some of us have these different traits and skill sets that are all fabulous, but we're put in the wrong roles sometimes. So a lot of cohesion doesn't happen. You can't get a lot of inclusive, diversity type thinking, because you're from the initial state, you're not really understanding yourself and how to really interact or place people in a way that is positive, that is cohesive, that is workable, and creates a really cohesion and a great sense of camaraderie throughout the team. So I would highly suggest that. And then because we're in this online environment, another tool is, like we all know, LinkedIn. It's really important for us to maintain our profile, especially in a LinkedIn environment, because those are ways that we can network without paying fees, without going to the old ways of how we used to do things. But, really connecting with people to see if your interests are aligned, what kind of business do they do? And is this the right person that you want to be dealing with or introducing to your company, team, or your colleagues or customers?
I'll just add, if I may, a couple of things. One, I'm actually working on a session or a series of coaching modules for a company out of the Bay Area, and it's around inclusive coaching and inclusive hiring, basically. And one of the highlights of the curriculum is about taking away these notions of fit. Even by using the term fit, it denotes that the person has to be morphed into the look, feel, sound, behaviors of the organization. It's like they have to code switch in order to be accepted as a part of the environment or the organizational structure. And so what I would offer as an alternative is for us to, instead of saying fit, to really kind of think about those individuals bringing their authentic self and embracing that authenticity for what it is, because that difference is what is going to make your organization grow and develop, because that difference is what is unique. That difference is reflective of our global economy. That difference is what allows that person to really kind of show up and give you their best and their authentic state. And so I would just offer that as a curve. And then I don't know who said it about, like, I think it was Rita, going to where the people are. When you say that these individuals don't exist, they do exist. Just find mediums and methods to attract, retain, advance, and develop those individuals if they are a part of your organizational structure.
I'll add something to that, maybe not as a tool, but just from a leader's point of view. I think, it all starts with us, and we have to be aware. Obviously, I think somebody already mentioned that, but we have to be uplifting. If you hired somebody, you saw something in them, and if you uplift them and, don't be discouraging, don't talk about disappointment. And I think the other thing is leaders need to be transparent. I mean, I think every single person that ever worked for me or works for me right now knows my story. And I mean, some of it's funny, some of it's not, some of it's challenging, but I always try to find something within my story to uplift people. And you're right, Airies. People can come from anywhere. One of my best employees ever was homeless when he walked into our office, and ended up becoming one of the best employees. And now he's actually a partner in the new company at Board's Eye. He's one of the partners, and he's a pretty amazing individual. And he was turned down all day for jobs, and I just saw something in him and gave him an opportunity, and sure, I'm happy that I did that. So, but there is a lot of tools out there, but I think we need to be always on radar and look out and try to be as transparent as we can.
I'd like to also add, and as many of us are leaders, and we've kind of clawed and fought and got ourselves to, whether it's the boardroom or advisory board, we need to advocate and support this and diversity, because sometimes, you may be quiet once you make it into the boardroom, but we need to speak up. We need to advocate so we could add, with people being mentored, to create this new opportunity with pipeline. And those that have made it into the C-suite or boardrooms, we got to stay strong. We got to stay open, right? And not just be muffled or silenced or outnumbered, but be that strength, right, until we add to it. So if we keep doing that, more and more people will be coming up, rather than, we made it or some people made it and staying quiet. So we always have to, and I love that, staying vigilant, staying aware, being attentive, and really learning from each other. So we're always getting new strengths and support as we are sometimes fighting.
Man, Martin and James, you're like right on cue. I don't even know how I could have gotten that cue for you two better. Could I have had a better transition from both of you? Thank you. That's exactly where we were going next, and you both saw it. So we've been talking for quite a bit about what it looks like, the inclusive side of leadership. Now, when Chirag was writing this copy and he said, what do you think about the title prolific? I'm like, wow, that's a big word. That's a hard word, Chirag, but I like it. I like the challenge in trying to kind of define and for us to play with that word or to examine it and think about like what prolific leadership looks like. Like we know what okay leadership's like. What does it take to get to like that next level of leadership? Like what are some things that you found? And I think Martin and Jim got us kicked off nice on some of those traits. I mean, let's add to that.
I think prolific is being fruitful and highly productive. So growing, helping people grow, pulling people up, helping them succeed. You use fruitful in spiritual sense, you're raising disciples, in the Christian sense, or, when you're in business, you're developing leaders. You want more leaders. We need more prolific people. So as a prolific leader, you want to be producing fruit, and that fruit is more leaders, wonderful leaders that can go on and go above you if necessary and in every direction. So I think that should be the goal of all leaders, is to create more leaders and heartfelt leaders. At this point, it should be always like that, but that's how I kind of view that word or that term, is really being fruitful and raising up more leaders.
All right, let's not all jump in on that one then. So we'll move on. So some tools. I want to get some feel for, like, let's just say that you're earlier in your career. Maybe you're just starting down this. So we've been talking about the C-suite. We've been talking about the boardroom so far, but let's address maybe the younger leaders out there that are either running their first company, or maybe they're just promoted in their positions, and they're looking at, building a long career in leadership. Like what kind of things, if you could go back and tell yourself when you were just getting started in leadership, like what kind of things would you be telling that younger you, or that person that's just getting started out, along the lines of leadership and how to cultivate that career?
Adam, I'll add, find a mentor. Find somebody that can mentor you and guide you. And also I was speaking on another group earlier today, volunteer, because you get to learn new skill sets by volunteering, and not just being a member, but actually taking leadership. And that's how I've grown. It's like almost taking another job. Hopefully you take a job that you like, and you're growing in so many ways by just putting yourself out there, outside the comfort zone, learning public speaking, learning organization skills, just learning a bunch of skill sets. But I would always say, find a mentor, find somebody who can guide you is the fastest path.
Elon Musk, he recently said on Clubhouse or one of his interviews that try to be very deliberate and careful about what company you join or pick your boss, or especially when you're starting out. I mean, make sure to really focus on who you're working with and the reputation of the company, and if it's aligned with your own values, because it does stay with you, and you are building a name early on. So do what you can to kind of start building your own brand, your own name, and establishing yourself as having something unique to bring to the world.
I would add to James' point about the mentorship. I would add mentor, advisor, coach, and advocate, and I would even add one more, sponsor. All of those individuals are essential for an emerging leader as they continue down their career journey, coupled with joining not just boards, but joining professional associations and groups, and not just joining, but becoming active. Activation is key. I can tell you 5 trillion stories of my career journey, and every single one has a glimpse into some shape, form, or fashion of professional association and membership, one of which the individual from a top tier organization pulled me in and showed me the ropes. So I guess, again, going back to the intentionality around our practice, having that tribe of advocate, coach, sponsor, advisor, and joining professional associations.
Totally agree with that. Honestly, I'm sorry, I don't recall who mentioned it earlier, but volunteering is an absolute wonderful way to gain all of those things she just mentioned. I have volunteered with so many organizations, and not that all of them are in line with maybe exactly what I'm doing, but I have met
the most profound and influential people just by volunteering in various organizations. So it is a wonderful way to network. It is a wonderful way to gain mentors and learn leadership skills and involved on other subcommittees and this committee. And that's how you really gain that invaluable experience. So networking is literally the key. You reach out to those demographics, those people in those areas that you're interested in, find volunteer opportunities and go for it, because people love people who want to volunteer, and they're really willing to share a lot more than they would for just someone that's coming in just to get a job. So I would highly suggest volunteering to start out before anything, because it'll gain you everything on the other side.
A new voice. I think all of this stuff that all of us have been saying, I think is wonderful, and it's on spot to help grow a leader. I think it would be interesting to talk about how, as a young leader, to get people to follow you. And that's a little bit different. And I think it was Martin who talked about transparency, and I agree with that. I think that there's interesting conversations to have about how to get people to trust you, how to get them to want to work with you, and to follow your lead.
One of the things I wanted to say, I agree with all of you, is really quickly, if the networking, yes, Elizabeth and Airies Elizabeth professional associations, I'm thinking about, because I know you guys are recording this, and what is going to be helpful for someone who's newer or younger. If the concept of networking is too overwhelming, just break it down like this. It's about quality conversations and connections, right? And nurturing them. So my other, piece of advice is don't underestimate the power of handwritten notes. Coffee and conversations and connections, and then following up.
That's really important, because a lot of times we're meeting people with an agenda, obviously, if we're in sales or in business, but sometimes just listening to whoever is in front of you and just kind of seeing how you can help them. Sometimes just sharing, connecting to people that aren't even related to what you're trying to do for your work. You'd be surprised when you need somebody that they'll be there for you just because you helped them in the past. And it's not even, that's a great reward, but you could really just make a lot of friends and influence people that way.
Yeah, I agree with everybody. And Renee, I always say to that, there's a reason I have 2 ears and one mouth. And I think listening is very important, especially if you are a leader. It's not about talking, but listening to everybody. And whether you're starting out to be a young leader, or whether you're thinking you're a seasoned leader, I don't think you ever stop learning. You should always have in old books, Dale Carnegie, a mastermind. So a board of advisors these days, what it's called, but you should always have the key people around you, and following up what everybody else been saying for any young leader. Surround yourself with successful people that you can be around, that can motivate you and lead you the right direction, give you the advice, but never think you're done learning or listening. Always grow, always learn, and pass it on as time is needed. And as far as Chuck, how do you, as a young leader, how do you get leadership? I definitely agree. Transparency, being honest, and just being an example. Me, myself, still to this day, I am still hands-on. Even though I'm a leader, I still hands-on, will jump in if needed and help anybody in the company, and never scared of, jumping in and doing what I did 20 years ago.
I would love to add, I'm listening and learning so much from everything y'all are sharing. So thank you, first of all. And it's been interesting for me to chase my dream and to kind of chasing this Hollywood path, right? And definitely bit off more than I could chew in a lot of cases. But in the process of chasing this dream and being very hungry, very ambitious, but also being kind of in awe of everything and having mad imposter syndrome along the way. And then myself being a leader where I had to lead other young aspiring artists on how they can navigate that path too, has been really eye-opening in terms of identifying and discerning character. I think working in Hollywood I think it's not, I don't know how much better or worse it is. I worked in tech and in public health briefly, but it is a very vulture filled industry where everybody absolutely has an agenda. Everyone wants to be a star. Everyone wants to find the next big thing. Everyone wants popularity, power, money, etc. So I think being in that environment has made me very keenly aware of people that just aren't good people. And you have to be able to listen and observe and build your own like confidence and your gut instinct of who's worth listening to. I think that's big advice I give to a lot of young people, because I'm in awe of Gen Z. I'm a millennial, but Gen Z, they're even better in a lot of ways than like identifying who's faking the funk, because they have like a BS barometer that's astounding to me, because I thought mine was pretty good. But maybe it's just because of social media and because they're exposed to so many versions of people all day, every day, which is detrimental in its own way. If someone's just being thirsty and, trying to be exploiting somebody or taking advantage of a situation, I mean, we as people can feel that a lot. And I think it's good to hone that instinct and to listen to your gut and to trust yourself with the confidence in yourself that then you can trust those who you're entrusting your career with, your future with. If you're going to take advice from somebody, gain mentorship from someone, is it simply because they make a ton of money? And is that what you want? Because some people can make tons of money in so many different ways, or you try to make art. What is your why? What is the what that you want to do? Yeah, I'm continuing to learn. So I just think discerning character and learning how to trust your own self is a really key part of then being able to receive good guidance.
All right. Well said, Minji. I'm sitting here taking notes and learning from you as I'm in awe and taking notes and learning from everyone also. So I guess I'll tee up the last question, at least on my end and the agenda I had, and that is, what's the financial case? So we've been talking about a lot of things involving leadership and inclusive leadership specifically. But is there a financial argument or case to a business's health for creating that type of situation that's inclusive?
Absolutely. You reach more broad audiences. The more diverse your company is, the more diverse your teams are, the more people you can reach. You can reach around the world. You really limit yourself if you don't have any diversity in your teams, different ways of thinking, people who can reach out to different groups and cultures and entities. And so you want to have as much diversity as you can, because financially it's an absolute benefit for any company, for any business.
And I'll just add a statistic to that. By 2020, what is it, 2045, the majority will become the minority. And so it's a business imperative to bring in diverse perspectives and diversity in terms of culture, race, gender, sexual orientation, differently abled, veterans, the whole gamut. And that's another key piece that I just want to put a pin in as we wrap up our conversation. There's a distinction between diversity and inclusion. Those are two separate words. But if we think about diversity in terms of just the terms that I just mentioned before, just note that the financial implications are strong, again, if you don't bring in all of those different identities that I just mentioned, because the workforce will be reflective of those individuals and you will be left behind.
I'll add something too. I love this, listening, hearing, and learning from everyone. I'm taking notes too, Adam. But one of the things with it is just the different younger people. I love as everyone says, oh, I wouldn't hire them. And I know some of the people that owns companies, they said that, but you need to learn how they speak, how they communicate, because they are our future. And it's really learning, because you don't want groupthink. You don't want people to be just in a silo. It has to be transparent, has to be accountable, has to be listening to everyone else. And as the leader, whoever's the leader, has to figure it out, making a decision, but hearing from everyone. So then if you have to make a planned decision, you can then execute and getting kind of the group behind you so you can move as a force. But you never want to be in an echo chamber with the same opinions over and over. It's going to lead you to destruction. So I just love listening to this.
I would also say I'm Gen X, and then I have two Gen Zs that work for me, and I've had a lot of millennials who I love who have been interns. and just work multi-generation, right? And of course, baby boomers on the other side. But what's interesting, I think, that if it goes back, it does go back to diversity and being whatever you can bring to the table that you're best at and try to advance. It's almost like a football team or something where everybody has a different role. And if you could kind of try to get the ball down the field together and then do your best at your part, because actually my Gen Z people are incredible at developing followers. So if you're looking for developing followers, I'm sure millennials are too, but they set up things right away. They get the groups together on social media, and it's powerful. And so when you kind of think about diversity across generations, as well as across, really the whole salad of America concepts, there's just, and then our skill sets, I think it's just going to be, of course, it's going to be more profitable, and more reflective of, and it's also, you won't be stuck in an echo chamber about your message and hopefully reach more people.
Yeah, and just to add to wrapping it up, I think I'm going to say something everybody knows, but diversity quite simply leads into creativity, which leads into innovation. And with the right leadership and right diverse group, that, if you want to talk about finances, we all know where that creativity can lead to. So, it's an incredible, powerful, and it's why I talk about it all the time and wrote a chapter about it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I was going to add, actually, I've had some in-depth conversations with one of our co-authors, Alex Sang. He can't be on the call right now, but one of the interesting things that he mentioned to me is that Bank of America internally has created multiple leadership boards focused on different subgroups or subcommittees, whether it's Asian Americans, whether it's Black Americans or Latino Americans. Combined between all these volunteer boards, they've directly brought in $4 billion in revenue annually. So that's the direct bottom line impact. Second thing is even if you look in the Hollywood, for example, with Black Panther or even Crazy Rich Asians, it's brought in hundreds of millions of dollars, which has opened up so many more opportunities, more recently with Bling Empire and all these new movies coming out. So it does directly impact the bottom line, along with creating innovation and really creating more opportunities.
All right, Chirag. I don't know how we dropped the mic on this one, but you threw out the billions of dollars and the bottom line on that, and I think that's a great way to end it on my end at least. So wanna thank everyone, of course, for showing up. So we'll be doing some more. So appreciate it.
Real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I guess if you want to just maybe wrap, I figured maybe it could be good for some audience questions. Andy here raised his hand, so I figured maybe he's got any final thoughts or questions for the group here.
Yeah, what's up, guys? My name's Andy. I'm at Headspace and started my own mental health company called Trill. Different take on kind of the mindfulness, industry. Just thinking about this, diversity and inclusivity when hiring. There's something that I was curious because I've only tuned in for the last 10 minutes that I was thinking about. A lot of the focus, in kind of the mainstream press right now gets related to race and maybe. I guess I'm curious of have you guys discussed more on the spectrum when it comes to autism of, how different minds are developed and how they think? And I just look at Twitch and I see these massive audiences that certain creators have where it's wow, these are people on the spectrum that have found an audience. And it's well, how do you hire people like this? I was just curious if this also gets looped in to the discussion of becoming a more inclusive company.
Elizabeth, go for it. I'll follow.
Seniors. There is a huge demographic of and others who are willing workers and could also growing and showing that we are able to provide a position and opportunity for these subgroups. So I'm really happy that you brought that question to the table. That is absolutely a part of the diversity and inclusion that should be listed. It's not just race, but I think that's what people immediately go to think about. But yes, absolutely. I am in agreement with that and practicing it myself.
Dope, thanks.
And I'll add to it, Andy, one other really important note is using correct terminology. So a part of what I teach around inclusive hiring is to say words like neurodiverse or differently abled so that you are practicing terms and terminology that is considered inclusive. And then secondly, when you think about those that may be coming into your organization who may require special support around access to restrooms and entryways and things that we sometimes, or time just to, it may take a little extra time to figure out problems or come up with different solutions. I too have a passion towards the mental health space. I have individuals in my family who utilize a lot of the support. And so I strongly believe that that is a part of the conversation around inclusive hiring practices. And it's not just race, but it is all encompassing.
Oh, well, thanks all. I've seen the term neurodiversity, but I didn't realize if it was mainstream or not. So, yeah, I definitely agree. I want to use the correct terms on this stuff, but I really appreciate the feedback, guys, and that this is also in the forefront of kind of leading thinkers in this space.
Perfect. Let's see. We have one more question. Tiffany is just joining us too.
Well, good evening. I've been on listening for a while. Thank you all. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the invitation. I'm so glad I had a chance to listen in. I also took a ton of notes. So I am a service member in the Army, and I wanted to know your thoughts on how we, for like organizations like different parts of the military. So for example, the previous administration had banned training on systemic racism training for like units. The current administration like reversed it, but there are still people in different leadership positions that may have some pushback. How do we, I guess, engage those leaders to be more supportive of that type of training to strengthen the organization as a whole?
What I'm finding is, for me, I'll just speak from my perspective, is, as a veteran member, if you're not a veteran member, it really helps to team up with other veterans who can come back and make or initiate some conversation to get both sides of perspective. Other companies, I would definitely say, as you already do in the community engagement, just being on this call, to reach out and actually maybe suggest that other corporations reach out, or vice versa, so that it's both coming from both sides of the table. Because the reality is that no matter who's in the military now, there may be a point in time where they're not in, and they may be going into one of our companies, let's say. So it'll be a nice time, and maybe it is the time where we start initiating that conversation to initiate that change, because, it's a long-standing ideology and kind of mentality that's been around forever, right? So that is just my suggestion. That is what I am doing as an ex-military person, but I'm suggesting to civilian corporations to take a look at that and start reaching out, because, that is how it all starts, just with the conversation and helping change mindset.
Okay, thank you. That's actually really good on both sides, for people who are still serving and then also for people who are transitioning out. Because I'm just thinking about this as I was listening to you, just thinking about the fact that if we were previously under like the leadership that wouldn't allow conversations on topics like this, then that prevents the soldiers from, unless they study it on, in their free time, it prevents them from really being exposed to it. But then when you transition to the civilian sector, you now have to learn the terminology and be able to engage with maybe groups that you didn't necessarily know anything about, or even the right words to use. So thank you.
Cool. Well, with that, I want to thank all of our panelists and our guests for being involved in the conversations. And, with that, just wanted to thank everyone for coming. We're going to have another event next week, which we'll be announcing through our newsletter. And then if anyone has any questions, feel free to definitely follow all of the panelists here. They all have a lot of insights. I'm sure, they can continue the dialogue offline if you guys have any questions. So definitely follow each other. Otherwise, we'll keep the dialogue going, and, feel free to reach out, and we'll keep you guys posted for next week's discussion.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.